Welcome back to another episode of Not Just Another Story. This week we've got a guest who I hold in quite high remark. So, welcome to the show, Nathan. How are we doing?
I'm doing very well. I'm pleased to be here.
Thanks, mate. And just looking back on that, that's not what I was originally planning to say, but I'm going to keep it raw and keep it in the episode anyways. But yeah, so just if you can give the audience, mate, just a little overview of what you currently do, and then we'll touch on, obviously, the agenda that we've got for the episode.
Yeah, sounds good. So at the moment, I'm currently implementing different AI systems for businesses. So we'll go into businesses and help them to automate different areas using artificial intelligence. And I also help people to become upskilled on AI in general. So whether that's somebody that wants to implement AI into their business, or it's somebody who just wants to learn more about AI for their job, or they perhaps are somebody that might want to sell AI services.
Oh, brilliant. So I've got some questions about AI, but I'm going to kind of ask them a little bit later on in the episode when we dig a little bit deeper into, obviously, the current business and things like that. So just for the audience, where kind of me and you got to know each other or know of each other was probably through Nightlife in Newcastle, promo, stuff like that, working for opposite companies. Both were obviously, we've left that in the past now, but biggest thing I learned from it was kind of confidence building, stuff like that from the type of work. So I've got two kind of separate questions about Nightlife and promo and stuff like that. First one was, how did you find, like the nightlife, the late nights every weekend? Like, how did that kind of affect you, do you think? Because I know I struggled with it personally, because I used to work in 9 to 5 and then promo on top of that. So, like, I was finishing work, going to the office, working, and then obviously the shifts as well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was at uni at the time, so it wasn't too bad because nobody goes to bed on time when it comes to uni. But I didn't really have at the time it was fine. Like, I didn't have a problem with the late nights. I enjoyed the culture and it was the right thing at that period in my life. And I learned so many invaluable skills and met so many different people, and skills which I would argue were more useful to me now than perhaps what I learned in my degree at the time. Well, both my degrees, but yeah, nothing that I learned in my degrees was anywhere near the types of skills that I learned from Nightlife. All the different skills that I learned during that time, they are all things that I use now. Things from my degree, not so much. So even though the late nights were sometimes difficult in terms of if I wasn't out and I wasn't drinking or whatever, maybe I was just working. Yeah, that was difficult. Because you're up late, and then sometimes you might have uni in the morning, and that was a difficult thing to do. That's if you actually went into uni. But yeah, it was good.
Good. Yeah, and the second one is kind of where I struggled the most, was like, the drinking culture. So obviously, if you had, say, uni, or even if you had like a shift in the office for loose days or something like that, and you've been out the night before, like, that used to always take its toll on me. I think a little bit more because me working the 9 to 5, I had like a full day's graft the day after on the Thursday, working the Thursday night, then going out after work, and then obviously going into work the next day on the Friday. How did the drinking culture affect you?
Do you know what? At the time, it didn't, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that period of my life. It was good. Yeah. And I feel as though I got everything that I needed to get out of my system at that point. I feel as though perhaps for some people, they've never been able to get that out of the system, and it's still part of their life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for me, I did everything that I wanted to do and managed to have good experiences, and that was good for that period of time. And I think for those types of things, it's okay in moderation. I think with anything, if that's what you're doing for a period of time where, that's all that there is to kind of do. When you're at uni, it's all about meeting people, experiencing different things and getting to know different people, what you like and what you don't like, and these types of things. And I think that part of that culture, it enables you to do those things. And without that part of that culture, I wouldn't have met all the people that I met, and I wouldn't have learned all the skills that I learned. And I really think that in particular, especially when I worked in nightlife, that helped to shape me as a person now. And it would be interesting to meet me when I first went into nightlife and then when I left nightlife, because I was just a different person entirely. And I think that particular industry helps to open your eyes to more things. And I think that it's a different thing to going out on the weekend when you're working in it. It's a different experience entirely. You get to see how things work, how social groups interact with one another. And yeah, it's sometimes I miss that time.
Yeah, I'm the exact same as you in that sense. I'll find myself often now because, like, probably you, there's still a lot of people who I worked with or people who, like, I worked under who are still in the industry now, and I see them post and stuff like that. And there's now and then I do feel like it would be fun to kind of run it again. But
but it's not the now. It's the you want to go back to that time. If you went back there now, it just would never be the same. I don't think that nightlife, particularly in Newcastle, is the same as it used to be. I don't think it perhaps maybe is even in the UK. I just don't think. No. I think a lot changed in recent years, and because of that, people's habits have changed. People go to bigger events, they go to raves, these types of things. They don't go to what used to be 2,500 people on a Saturday night. That just doesn't happen anymore. It's all one-time events.
Yeah, like one-off events now, isn't it? I've noticed that, like, I've got an 18-year-old cousin and he doesn't really go out in town anymore. It's more local. But when he does go out, it's like what you say, like to raves and like the one-off events like Loose Fest and stuff like that, rather than going to like you say, the Riverside on a Saturday or Digi on a Saturday and stuff like that, where that's kind of what we were brought up on when we were kind of 18 to 21, 22 maybe.
Yeah.
So I agree, it's totally changed, like massively, the scene. I mean, I can't really tell you. I can't remember the last time I was out properly in Newcastle. I always go to stay local or go to time out when I have been out recently, but that's just standard, I think, once you get a bit older around here. But yeah, so for you then, for being quite heavily involved in nightlife, stuff like that, throughout your uni days, you're now currently 22 months sober?
22 months sober at the moment, as of September the 5th. So, yeah, I'm coming up to 2 years sober now. So,
how's that been then? Because I'm on 40 days. This time round I haven't struggled. But I know in the past, when I've tried doing it, I've like struggled and caved after like 3 or 4 weeks. So, how's 2 years been? Is that the case now where you just haven't done it for that long, it just doesn't faze you?
Yeah, it would feel strange. It would feel strange, I think, if I was to go and have a drink now. I think it would, as you get further along in the journey of being sober, you don't want to do it because you've gone so far. But I think in the process, you just become a different person. You want different things. And I don't know if that's partly because I'm now 25 as well, so I don't want to go to clubs anymore. I don't want to go to raves. I don't want to do that thing. So, and I never really used to drink I never drank in the house by myself or anything like that. It was always just, if I went out to a club and that was it. I didn't really drink that much in bars either. Like I would drink in a bar and then go to a club. But even sometimes when I was at the Newcastle games or something like that, I would go at the game and I would just be sober and I just wouldn't drink. So it wasn't too hard to stop doing that.
Yeah.
And it's as you go further along, it's just not part of my life anymore.
Yeah. See, that's a good way of looking at it, because if I'm being honest, I think my head's for a bit of me is still being stuck in them times a little bit, because even when I used to go to the local like pub, say even with my dad, after 2 or 3 drinks, I was on the phone still like texting friends, stuff like that. Like if I went to the pub, I would go to the pub to have a drink rather than just going for the socialising part of it. Where now it's like I'll just drive to the pub just to make sure, obviously, I'm not tempted or anything like that. But even after 40 days now, like after football, everyone else is having pints and stuff, and I just don't really feel the craving for it anymore. Like where, say, at the start of the year, maybe at the back end of 2023, if I went to the pub, I might have the car, but I'll be sat watching everybody and still be like, I could like have a pint. So it's quite good that you've never kind of
It swaps though.
Personality, does it?
It does swap, yeah. Once you've done it for long enough and you go into the social situations
Yeah.
and you see other people like that, you then go, God, was I really like that when I'd had a drink? And the answer is yes, you were. And probably much worse. And just seeing that, you then realise, hang on, I'm not missing anything else.
Yeah.
If I'd had a drink here, it wouldn't have changed anything. And I've got the option to leave this situation and go home at the right time. There's always that point in the night that you get to, right? Where if you were sober, you know that that's the time to leave. Whereas when you've had a drink, you just continue going, and it doesn't get better. When you have a drink, you have this point, right? And it continues to get more and more fun, and then you get to a certain number of drinks, and then that's the point where it doesn't continue to get more fun. It has a worse ROI after that point, and that's the problem. Yeah. But once you've seen people in particular states, knowing that you've been in them states yourself, you just go, I just don't want to do that. And you're not missing out anything. You completely lose that FOMO. And I think that other people also kind of wish that they could do what you're doing. And it's almost like, how can you not? I don't get how you've not got that willpower.
Yeah. No, I totally understand that now. But if we had this conversation, say, 6 months ago, I'd be arguing the case where it's so hard not to have that willpower. It's like, I think just be that perspective as well, where I never used to have this sort of perspective either. And I know looking back at some of the states I know I've been in, like, I don't need to look out for people to think, oh, was I really like that? I know for a fact I was 10 times worse. But yeah, so I'm honestly like that, open about it, but that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to kind of change my perspectives and change like my life and outlook, where I'm alright, but you kind of went into like a monk mode sort of situation, didn't you? Where you just kind of didn't really go out, and you kind of just were business orientated more than anything, just kind of upgraded yourself more than anything.
You could say that. Yeah. I completely dropped off the face of the earth, and I think some people probably thought I was dead. I went through a period of time, I think maybe, even still a little bit now, I would say, but I'm active on social media now since I started building the personal brand, so people will see me doing things, whereas I went through a period of, at least I would say 18 months, where I just was completely locked in and had one focus entirely. I think that with anything, and one of the things that I've learned is, if you want to get to a certain place, nobody gets there through balance. You can't get there through balance. If you want to, for example, increase the amount of money you're making, or you want to improve your health and your fitness, or you want to improve your social skills, you have to go deep and narrow with those particular things for a given period of time. You can't do all of them at once. Mm-hmm. So, for example, if you take the social skills side of things, I spent a long time in Nightlife, right? Yeah. And I managed to build on my social skills and all the things that come with those skills. And then I went through a period of time of when I just spent all my time on the business, and that's all I did, and that's all I'm continuing to do at this moment. Next thing will be my health and fitness, and that's what I'll spend my time doing. And that's not to say that when you do the other things fall aside. Yes, they do to an extent, but you don't make as much progress if you try to do everything at once. So you want to maintain the thing that you've worked hard for, and then go at the next particular thing, and go narrow and deep into that as much as you possibly can.
Yeah. No, that's great, to be fair. That's like me now with the podcast, because I think beforehand I never had that kind of drive, because in regards to start my own business, stuff like that, I'm still trying to kind of work out what the value I could add to somebody. And I think that's the best thing. Like, it's pointless kind of starting something if you don't fully believe you're adding value to other people. Where that's why I thought having this podcast, obviously having the same kind of topics towards the end of the podcast could help somebody, could obviously add that value. And then different life experiences as well. I just think I'm really interested. I think I mentioned on a couple of episodes now, but I really like those conversations, where they're in deep, but normally you would only have these conversations at 4:00 in somebody's kitchen. Like
Exactly.
They're the type of conversations I like to have. So there's a couple of people who's going to come back on, and we're going to talk about like stuff like ancient Egypt and not just like lives. So quite diverse kind of podcast episodes rather than being kind of just the same stuff with a different person each week. So now I'm like that in that sense where I know I mentioned off air where I've just spent pretty much from 5:00 till 9:00 every night this week just kind of looking at working on my editing. So I understand what you're saying in regards to some things kind of drop off a little bit, but you need to kind of do that to fully focus and improve on one thing at like a better pace.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, going sober will change your perspective on everything.
Yeah.
Everything. Because what it does is it makes you realise the things that you actually care about. Because one, alcohol itself it distracts you, and it's a stimulant, right? So if you go to the bar, right, or you go to the club, you're having to take this stimulant in order to enjoy the experience. If you go to a club sober, I've done it maybe twice in the last couple of years, and it's nowhere near as good at all. I'm not sitting here pretending that being sober is more fun in that situation.
Yeah.
But I don't want to do those things anymore. Like, I just don't have the desire inside of me to want to do those things. And it's a hard concept to get across to people that that's a thing, but it just changes the way you think and the desires that you have. You just don't want to do those things. And it's like you're saying about wanting to have deeper, more meaningful conversations with people.
Yeah.
That's part of it. And that is something you'll find when you go sober. You don't necessarily care about the gossiping that people have, the sort of top level conversations that you'll have with people. It just kind of, it doesn't fulfill you. I don't enjoy those conversations at all. And they're typically the conversations that you'll have with people in a bar or a club or whatever. And for me, that just doesn't fulfill me, having those conversations. I want to talk about things that I'm doing currently and how I can help you or you can help me. And those types of things is what I'm personally most interested in. Those sort of surface level conversations just don't do it for me anymore. But because it changes your perspective on everything, that's what will keep you going. Because I think it depends on your why. Like, why are you going sober? That's the thing. It's what are you wanting to achieve in doing it? It's great just to go, okay, I'm just not going to drink anymore. But if you've not got an end goal to it or a reason why, then it can be difficult. But my reason why was so much bigger than the want and desire that I had to have a drink, that it wasn't difficult. Honestly, I would love to sit here and say it was so hard, but it really hasn't been that hard at all. Yeah. And I mean, there's a story I can go into that when I first went sober, if you want.
I mean, you can do, but just before jumping into that, I think that's what I've struggled with, like when I've mentioned in the past about trying to do it and stuff like that. I've never managed to fully go sober. I've always like caved in because I didn't have that why until now. So that makes a lot of sense, but I've never actually thought of it in that kind of sense. I've kind of just, are you sober? But now it's because obviously podcasts, a lot of the episodes are done on like a Saturday morning. So for me, Friday nights I used to go out. Pointless now because it would mean for me missing doing episodes, stuff like that. But come on then, I am interested in hearing in the story for when you
just on that one, alcohol has the worst ROI that you could possibly get because it costs money, right? It costs time in terms of the time that you're out drinking. Yeah. It then costs the next day, and for me, the day after, because I was getting 2-day hangovers, and that was the problem. Yeah. So as you go, through it, it's just there's not a lot of positive to it, and like I say, you have that almost chasm of where once it gets to a certain level of fun, it doesn't continue to get more fun as you drink more. More alcohol doesn't equal more fun past a certain point. So in terms of when I first started, and if anybody's listening who is trying to do something like this, I never had a problem with it. I just went out every weekend, but I just knew that to get to where I wanted to be, this thing wasn't going to serve me because it had a negative ROI to it. There's a story that I had read around the time of when I went sober. And it was about, and I wish I knew the guy's name, but I don't. It's about a swimmer, right? And he basically was training to be in the Olympics, and he had spent all his time in training and stuff like that, constantly working on obviously becoming better so that he could go to the Olympics, and his goal was obviously to win a gold medal. That's all he had. That was his vision. That was his goal. And one of the big sports brands, I don't know, maybe Adidas, Nike, someone like that, came along to him and said, look, we'll sponsor you. You just have to wear swim shorts and the cap, and that's it, and we'll give you X amount of money. And it was a serious amount of money. And the guy's agent said to him, well, you've got to take this. Like, this offer's too good to refuse. This will set you up for life. And the guy, the swimmer, turns to his agent and he said, if I take this, then that's taking me a step away from my goal. And the reason why was because the guy tried out the new swim stuff, right? And I didn't even believe this at first because he was saying that basically the swimming outfit that he had was slowing down his time. So it slowed his time down by maybe a couple of milliseconds. And that, even though was probably minuscule, the guy's goal was to win the Olympic gold medal. So by taking that deal, that put him further away from his goal. And he said to his agent, like, what's the goal here? And the goal was to win the Olympic gold medal. It wasn't to get the money. That was the goal. And it made me think about it at the time. And I was like, if you're trying to do that thing, you'll do everything right so that all of the other things that could be a constraint on getting towards the goal are minimized to the maximum amount so that you have the best opportunity of getting to that specific goal. And that was it for me. And I took the decision at the time because I'd just left my job. And when I went all in on the business, I knew that in order to make it successful and in order for me to feel as though I was making the right decisions, and that if things didn't go well, I had done absolutely everything I possibly could do to make the thing work. I wouldn't have to look back and go, well, you didn't do this or you didn't do that, and that was the reason why. Because I'd have to live with that regret of the fact that I hadn't done everything in my power to be able to do it. And I think that's the same as what the Olympic swimmer would have said if he was stood on the bronze for a bronze medal. And he'd have been thinking on that podium, I didn't do everything that I could have done, but at least I've got some money. And it's just like, it depends what fulfills you, you know what I mean? Yeah. And for me, that was the main thing. And then I'd started to do it, and I was going to do it for 6 months. That was the goal. I said, look, I'll do 6 months. That'll get me to where I'm probably where I need to be, and then continue on from there. And somebody I know, who I'll never name, I told them about this, and I was like, I'm going to go sober to my birthday. So I went sober 6th of November, and the goal was April, so it was about 6 months. And he said to me, he was like, oh yeah, whatever. I was like, no, I'm going to go sober to my birthday. I'm 100% that's what I'm going to do. And I was so set in stone on the fact that I was going to do this. And he said, yeah, whatever. We'll see was his words. And I've still got the text message saved on my phone. And I had it as my lock screen for a while. And that single text message is partly the reason I was sober for that initial period, because I thought, that guy really thinks that I don't have that willpower, or I can't do something as simple as just refusing to say no to something that's not going to benefit as part of my goal. And obviously at the beginning I was like, right, I'll show him. And when I get to the goal, I'll text him and I'll say, fucking told you that I was going to do it. I got to the goal and I didn't even text him. I didn't even feel the need to text him. I wasn't bothered at all. And I just kept going from there. But that was the initial period that helped us to just go, this is what I'm going to do. And when you first do it, You have people who will say to you, why are you not having a drink? Oh, you're weird. And the funniest thing is they'll say to you, that's not what you do. Because they have this identity attached to you. They think certain things about you and how they perceive you, and these certain things are attached. And people like to have ideas of other people and put them into a specific box. This person's like this, they like these things, these do these things, they do these things, and that's good for people because there's no uncertainty. And then when you start doing things that are outside the norm, then people start and go, hang on a minute, he doesn't do that. That's weird. He's not like that at all. This is completely different from his identity. Yeah. And people have resistance to that. And I think the UK is particularly bad for it. I've got quite a few friends in America and that now through what we do. And it's not like that there. They're all like, yeah, you go do the thing or whatever it might be. And they're very encouraging. Whereas in the UK, it's very much crabs in a bucket. Somebody tries to go and do a thing that's outside of somebody else's comfort zone, and they're like, whoa, get back here. You're not doing that. And that's where most people stop. But if you can power through that point, when you get maybe 6 months down the line, 7, 8 months down the line, people realize you're serious about that particular thing, and the narrative switches entirely. People start and say, well done, I wish I could do that. I always thought you'd be able to do it, and these types of things. And it completely changes, and people have respect for the thing that you've done. But in that initial period, it's very difficult.
Yeah. No, just about that as well, it's really funny you mention it, because on Sunday after football, I told a couple of the lads, I'm going to Poland on a solo trip in December. And first thing someone said to us was, well, you're not the most outgoing person to make friends by yourself, are you? And I was like, well, that's partly one of the reasons why I'm going, because it's not something I would normally be comfortable doing, but I'm trying to push myself out my own boxes. And what I said to him, I was like, you got to remember, I used to stand on Cold Street corners on a Friday night trying to get people into events. It's not like I can't speak to people. And then I went to Australia by myself as well. So I'm used to doing, obviously, them things, but because he knows me as this kind of person, I'm loud and outgoing when I'm with my friendship group, but I'm quite reserved when I'm outside of it, kind of keep myself to myself. So it's funny that you mentioned people putting you in that boxes, because literally just Sunday gone, that was his first response when I mentioned about going away on my own. So that's quite funny how you did mention that. It's
true. That's what people are like. But if you're working towards a specific goal, then you can't just get the thing, right? If let's say it's a certain revenue point, or it's a certain physique, or it's you have a certain persona, you're charismatic, these types of things, right?
Yeah.
You can't just obtain those things. You have to become the person that has those things. And people used to say this, and I used to be really confused. I'd be like, well, no, I could just get the thing and I would be that thing. But it's not true. It's not true at all. And the reason I know it's not true, right, is because, for example, somebody comes around to you tomorrow, right, and you win the lottery, right? Let's say you win £50 million. Majority of people who win the lottery lose all the money because they're not the person that can handle that amount of money, right? Yeah. So when it comes to business growth or whatever it might be, it's like you need to be the guy that can handle that stress. You need to be the guy that would do X, Y, and Z, and that's the person you need to become. And in that pursuit of trying to become the person that has those things, so if it's a guy, for example, that is in exceptional shape, you have to do all the things that person would do, and then you get the thing. So the person who is in exceptional shape will go to sleep on time. He'll eat the right things. He goes to the gym every day, even when he doesn't want to. He gets up consistently at the same time. And they'll do all those things, and then if you do those things, you'll have the thing that you want. Yeah. And the problem with this, though, and this is where most people struggle, is in order to become the person that has that thing, the person that you currently are has to go. You have to destroy the version of yourself now to become the version of the person that has the things that you want to get. And most people spend their life just dreaming of becoming that person who has those things and don't take any action at all because they're very scared of the fact that, one, you'll look weird to your friends, or that's not usual for you, or you have imposter syndrome. And you have to overcome these things. And as you overcome them, it's almost like I always picture it as a circle. Yeah. And as you do more things outside that circle, the circle gets bigger. So if you're to then look back on things that you perhaps didn't do 2 years ago, couldn't do 2 years ago, and now can do, that's within your remit. And your remit just becomes bigger over time as you do more things that are outside of that initial circle.
Yeah. No, that's a great explanation of it as well, because I know you mentioned imposter syndrome there. I don't know about you, we'll touch on that in a second as well, but starting this podcast, even trying to like host for the first time and stuff like that, I had a massive case of imposter syndrome, like kind of this isn't what I should be doing, but after I got going, I really enjoyed it. Like a few episodes in, I felt a lot more confident, kind of prepped a lot better as well. Each episode, you kind of learn little things. So just with that imposter syndrome and kind of moving on as well, with the Business Lounge, which was your old podcast, did you ever find that when you started that or when you started your first business Fusion as well?
100%. When I first started that podcast, so to give you context, the reason I started the business was because I learned the skill in lockdown. So the original business that I had, I did graphic design services, I did video editing, these things. And I just wanted to learn the skill. It was lockdown, I had nothing to do. I'm a very proactive person in terms of I need to have something going on all the time, otherwise I get bored. I can't really sit and just do nothing. It doesn't serve me very well. So I had to find something with my time. And I knew that because obviously I'd been in nightlife, I was always interested in video editing and artwork because that was the thing that I thought was great. And it's funny because for those that are listening who are from Newcastle, when I first ever seen, right, the Conduct video, promo video from, God, it must have been like maybe 2016, 2017. I thought it was the best thing ever. I was like, I need to go to that gaff. That is a serious night out. Yeah. And the video made it look absolutely exceptional. The music was great. The edit was great. I would love to know who edited that video, right? Yeah. It was great. And from that point onwards, obviously, when I then went to work in nightlife, that was always the thing I was super interested in. And I think maybe at that time, those things were super important. I think it's less important now, artwork and those things. I think, well, we'll not get into it, but there's a bunch of other things that go into marketing now, which I think are more important. But at the time, I thought those things were cool. I was always excited to see the new artwork for the events or for any special events. Same with the video stuff. So anyway, so I wanted to learn the skill. I knew that the skill itself would be valuable regardless of what I ended up doing, because I knew that in my head, more skills just means I'm a better, more rounded person who can offer value to different people, whether that was in a job or it was for myself. And then eventually, like, I was getting through the thing and I was just publishing my work that I was doing, and I was just like, I'm doing this thing, I'm learning the skill, here's some stuff I made. And then people asked us to do logos, these types of things, which I had never done, ever. I'd never done them, I'd never charged a client, I'd never sent an invoice, I'd never done any of these things, and I had no clue what I was doing. I didn't know how to properly do any of it. I had no idea. And that's the exciting thing. Like, and it's hard to look back now and be pleased that was the circumstance, because if I'd known more at that time, I'd be way further along than we are now. But at the same time, it's interesting to look back and think I've came a long way since then, with obviously where we are now with the business and stuff, and how things have evolved for me personally. But I started the podcast because I wanted to, it was ultimately to have more conversations like this, and I used it as leverage as well. So one of the things which, when I first started, I was like, right, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to get clients, and I'm going to do people's artwork, and that's what I'm going to do. And when I made that decision, I think I decided within a week that I was doing a podcast, and I was like, I'm going to do this. This is a good opportunity. I had seen a clip from Gary Vee. Gary Vee says in this clip that you should start a podcast because if you're in a specific geographical location, if you can use leverage by leveraging other people's audiences to grow your own reputation, then that's a good thing to do. He used the analogy of when you were in high school and you used to have house parties. Everybody wanted to be friends with the person that had the house party, so you just host the house party and you would make more friends. Yeah. So it was a bit like that concept, but by doing that, I had no business reputation because I was new. But I had friends who had established businesses and good reputations. So by inviting them onto the podcast, it was by association that people thought who liked them, because he's speaking with this person, their friends, his reputation's good, this guy also must be credible. And that was the idea. And that got me people organically through content. And that was the main reason that I did it for the time that I did it. Yeah. And then eventually the amount of like referrals and things like that overtook the podcast. The podcast was taking too much time. And then I learned the next best lesson, which is like scalability is important. And that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But yeah. But when I first started, I had no idea. I've got some screenshots on my phone of my podcast setup. The first episode, the 20th episode, and the last episode I ever did. And in those different photos, they're all exactly the same in terms of the camera's the same and the location's different. But the only thing that changed from the first one to the last one's the lighting and my ability to know how to use a camera. And I really liked those photos because that to me symbolized the importance of learning skill. Because even though, in my opinion, wasn't the biggest podcast in the world, wasn't anything like that, and that was never about that, right?
Yeah.
It's about acquiring clients, but nobody could have listened to that podcast, right? And I did it for 58 or 59 episodes, maybe a few more, but something like that. Well over a year that I did the podcast.
Because it's like 1% make it over 20 episodes, so.
And the thing is that I knew that all I had to do is show up. The first ever episode I did was terrible. It was so bad. The episode was good for the audience. The guests provide great value. The stories were interesting. Yeah. The camera setup was terrible. The lighting was terrible. I spoke about 4 words. I was absolutely shitting myself to speak on camera. And anyways, eventually, I think maybe about 12, it took maybe 12, 13 episodes, and I got more comfortable doing the thing. And then I got better at doing the lighting. I got better at doing the editing, the audio, the camera settings, all these different things I got better at over time. I got better at speaking on camera. I got better at asking good questions. And all my skills improved just by doing it continuously. And if nobody ever listened to that podcast, those skills themselves were the most valuable thing. Because then when it came to launch a personal brand and stuff like that, I had spent all the time acquiring the skill of being able to talk on camera, knowing how to edit audio, knowing how to edit video. And those skills have then been useful because when I then come to do that, I've managed to grow that quite quickly. And that's paid incredible amounts of returns. So despite the thing during that 58, 60, however many it was, episodes, not having the greatest ROI, the skill itself has had infinite ROI and will continue to do so. And that's the important thing. But most people don't ever start because they're going to be rubbish at the beginning. But that's the thing. You will always be crap at whatever you start with. And the truth is, nobody actually cares. No one cares about that podcast. No one cares about that first episode. Nobody ever says to me, hey, you remember that first episode you did? Never spoke. No one ever says that, ever.
Yeah.
Someone's probably going to say it now.
Met someone message you after this goes live. To be fair, I know I mentioned that before the podcast started recording, but I was later watching it, but I think I binge watched pretty much every episode until I got caught up. And because I know it changed over time, because you had your co-host, was it Josh?
Yes.
Was it Josh? Yeah.
When I changed the co-host?
No, when who was the original co-host again?
Josh Dunleavy.
Yeah.
Shout out to Josh.
But yeah, I remember when I was used to in that first episode that you mentioned, because one of the best things that I found about yourself, anyways, was the first couple of episodes he done a lot of the talking, but then as the episodes went on and on, like you kind of came into your own, started like leading a lot more of the conversations, and you could tell like you're getting more confident, and then obviously it changed, and then you had, can't remember his name, but he does the houses.
Nathan Berry.
Nathan Berry, yeah. So he came on quite a bit as well, didn't you? Then you started going over like the recent topics rather than like a new guest every week and stuff like that. So seeing when you mentioned self-development, actually seeing it from someone who watched the podcast, like it's quite admirable as well, because you can kind of see where you started to kind of where you ended up as well. And then now with the videos you're like putting out on LinkedIn and everything like that, you can kind of tell like it's played some part like with speaking on the camera.
1,000,000%. And that's the thing I'll always say, is that the hardest thing is doing something for a prolonged period of time without seeing any results at all. But I always knew that I was getting better at the skill, and I knew that that was a valuable skill to have. And that's why I continued to do it. I was never, ever bothered about who listened or anything like that.
Yeah.
All I cared about was, nobody could listen. 5 people could have listened. It wouldn't have mattered. I just knew that I was getting better at the skill. I was having conversations that were good. And that was the most important thing. And like I say, the things that I did then have paid off now because I've used them in another thing. Yeah. And people can take away things from you, right? They can take away tangible things. That could take away money from you. That could take away your house, your car. You can never take away your skills, the intangible, right? Nobody can ever take away all those years I stood on a nightclub door speaking to random people I've never spoke to before, handling people when they're absolutely, drunk.
Yeah.
All those experiences that I've had, no one can take those away from me. So if tomorrow I lose everything, I've still got those things. And skills are the most important thing you can acquire. Yeah. It's not about acquiring money. It's about knowledge and skills. They're the things that you need to seek.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think obviously me doing this, it's going to probably benefit me in the same way it has you. So like I mentioned, the reason I'm doing it is to learn more, see things from different perspectives. So I don't know where this will be in a year's time, but I want to keep doing it, whether I have 5 views or say like 500 views. Like, it doesn't really bother me. For me, it's something that I enjoy doing. Well, so far anyways. I could change my mind in a couple of months when I start like getting slaughtered on the internet. But just on that as well, did you ever see any negative comments on socials about it or anything like that, or do you think a lot of it was like quite positive?
Most of it was positive. I don't think I ever had a bad comment, but it was never big enough to have a bad comment. Nobody cared enough to leave one. Obviously now with the content I'm putting out now on TikTok and all the other channels, I get maybe, I don't know, 1 or 2, but I think the type of content I put out it's educational, so the types of people that leave hate aren't there. Do you know what I mean? They don't seek that type of content. Sometimes a video that I'll do will pop off a little bit and it reaches a new type of person and they perhaps don't like it. I've just had one yesterday that performed quite well, and you can tell when it reaches a new audience that's not in your thing. It's maybe part of a different interest, and when it reaches that, you might get some people. But it's never like a bad thing. The worst I get at the minute is I might say something's a free trial, which it is. Say it's a software I'm reviewing or something along those lines, and somebody says, yeah, it's not free though. That's probably the worst it gets. At the moment, I mean, this video could go out and I could be getting slaughtered online, but I hope that doesn't happen as things continue to progress. But the thing is, you can pick your problems, right?
Yeah.
That's the only thing you get to choose in life, is to pick which problems you have. You're always going to have problems, right?
Exactly, yeah. Whether
it's your job or it's your business or whatever it is, you can only pick which problems you have. So you've got to pick some of them. Mm-hmm. And that's what I found. When I, for example, started producing more content, I knew that the issues that I would get with it are, well, somebody could leave a hate comment, But that's nothing like compared to other things that I've had to go through. You know, if you're dealing with a client, for example, and something doesn't go right, and then you've got the stress of that not going right, and you have to put it right or whatever. Yeah. Or perhaps you've got, I don't know, when I first started, I would get, before I had systems and processes and these things in place, I'd have clients ringing me at 9 o'clock at night and this sort of thing. And as you get further down the line, you realize that that's probably not the best way to do things. But as I'm saying, you can pick the problems you have. So just pick ones that you're okay to deal with and, you know, limit the amount of stress that you do have.
Yeah. No, that's...
I can deal with a hate comment. Someone leaves a hate comment, I can deal with that. Yeah. Don't go leaving them, though.
Yeah, please don't. That's a great like perspective to have as well, because there's a lot of people who probably would like anything negative. They kind of, I wouldn't say crumble, but they let everything affect them, and then it's like a massive weight just keeps building up. So I think having that kind of mindset where it's like you'll choose like you say, choose your problems, and the little things that don't really matter, it's like you don't need to worry about them. So I think that's a fantastic mindset to have, especially kind of when you are like on social, like active on social media. Where thing with me, I'm trying to be, but if I'm being honest, I'm trying to do a lot more lifestyle stuff as well, just to kind of go hand in hand with the podcast. But I always forget to record, like because of the content that I want to do. I can't really remember to do it, where it's probably a little bit easier for you if you're doing kind of educational ones. It's like you'll have an idea, then you'll kind of set up, get ready. So I need to be more...
Well, this is the thing. The advice I would give to anybody that wants to start building a personal brand or just creating content is you need to limit the amount of friction that you have between you coming up with the idea and you recording the content. The more you can reduce the friction, the easier it's going to be. So, for example, for me, I have my camera already set up, the lighting's already set up, it's all enabled. I'm not going to say, but it's enabled with the Alexa. Give it a minute. And that allows me to obviously just have everything set up and I can record straight away. And that is important, because if I've got to sit there and go, I've got this great idea for a video, oh my God, I've got to set this mic up, I've got to get my camera out, I've got to put the lighting up, I'm not doing it. It's just too much friction in between me and doing the task. So limiting that friction's the best thing. And just starting. No one cares about your videos. Like, no, honestly, nobody cares. Yeah. I've got videos that have done over 100k views 6 weeks ago. No one cares about those. They were 6 weeks ago. Like, just make the videos. When I first started, even the personal brand and that on TikTok now, the videos that I first put out are terrible compared to the ones now. And the ones now, 6 months' time, will be terrible compared to the ones in 6 months' time. But you have to just keep going and you have to start somewhere and things will get better over time.
No, great bit of advice, mate. Thank you for that. And obviously, Fusion and the Business Lounge just kind of gave you that experience of what works, what doesn't work, everything like that. So my next question would kind of be like, what made you step away from Fusion and then start this new brand? So like the new company, it's like AI based, kind of. I think the first question is, what triggered the interest in AI more than anything?
Yeah. So I think with anything, and I mean even with what we're doing currently, everything has its place in your journey. So the thing that you're doing now might not be the thing you're doing in 5 years' time or 10 years' time, but it all plays its part. So as I was mentioning previously, when, for example, I was on about the podcast and doing the content, and I'd spent weeks, every single week, committed to 1 to 2 hour episodes that hardly anybody listened to. Yeah. But the skill, I've used it now to grow a personal brand that's returned ridiculous ROI off. Yeah. And the reason why I pivoted and started the new brand was because, one, the opportunity in the space that we're in, but mainly because to get from A to B in terms of different revenue points, it requires different business models. And that had its cap at where I was in my my time. So I'd learned skills and stuff which I felt as though I could apply elsewhere, which then I would get a better return. So, for example, when I first obviously spoke earlier, I was on about I never sent an invoice in my life, these types of things. That business at the time allowed me to get a lot of experience with different things which I'd never had experience with. And then the skills that I learned during that time, when applied to a higher ticket item, like AI, for example, that's proved better use of my time. I've got higher leverage in that position. Yeah. So therefore I can make more for less time. If you take something like graphic design or artwork, and don't get me wrong, you can scale it up and you can scale out a team and you can continue to grow that revenue to a certain point.
Yeah.
But you're still trading your time for money or somebody else's time for money, which means that you need to scale out a team, right? You have to scale out a team. As you scale out a team, margins get squished, right? So either you're doing all the work, right, and you're trading your time for money, or somebody else is doing that and you're having to pay them. So therefore, the margins get worse over time.
Yeah.
But for example, what we do now, like in AI and stuff, because we're doing software's infinitely scalable. So we don't have the scalability issue. So we can scale, as big as we want to kind of scale without having to have a massive team. So that keeps the margins high.
Yeah.
And there's actually an interesting quote that Stephen Bartlett said on a podcast once. And he was on about, he took the skill of marketing and applied it to a certain context, and it meant he got a higher return on his money. So he had previously been doing marketing for just different companies, and then he started focusing on helping. It was around the sort of brand storytelling side of things. And he basically moved to doing brand storytelling for companies that were about to IPO. And in doing so, he went from making thousands of dollars to millions of dollars off the back of that. But he was doing the same thing in a different context.
Yeah.
And that's the key difference. So I think with anything, especially in my own life kind of career, for example, I worked in a restaurant when I was 16 till I was 18.
Yeah.
And then when I was 18, I worked in nightlife. Now, the reason I moved into nightlife was because there was a period of time where I was working in the restaurant, and then I went to work in nightlife. And the reason why I worked in nightlife was because I was able to earn commission. So I wasn't tied to that hourly rate, and I got a return based on result as opposed to based on time exchanged. Yeah. And that's the key difference there. And I think that with anything, it's all about leveling up. So the thing that I'm doing now won't get me to the next point that I want to go to. Potentially, I don't know yet. I don't have I'm not that guy. Do you know what I mean? I'm trying to get to be that guy. So I don't know. I can't tell you the answer, but I can tell you the answer to obviously previous things I've done. It's all about just spotting opportunity, and the opportunity with AI it's mega. The demand for this stuff's crazy, and I always had a tech background. I did computer science at A level, and when I obviously started doing the marketing stuff with Fusion, I got to a point where I was really good in terms of building systems and processes. So I went from, here's just a basic example. When I first ever started, I would design an invoice inside of Adobe. Design the invoice, send the invoice, and then somebody would pay the invoice via bank transfer, right? Yeah. That was the process. And as I got further down the journey, I realized, okay, I'm spending loads of time doing admin, things like sending invoices. How can I just make this easier? And then that's when I automated doing that. So rather than having to create the invoice, it would just automatically send the invoice. We could auto charge the card so that we didn't have that period of time where we're waiting for an invoice to be paid for. Right. And they get the invoice receipt and all this, and it all happens automatically. So when I then realized the opportunity of AI combined with automation, that's when I realized that it's going to change the world. And to be at the start of an industry that's evolving is very rare. It's not, these opportunities don't come around very often. And to me, it just made the most sense because it's. I've always been an early adopter when it comes to tech. Always been interested in computers. I've always had the desire to learn as much as I can when it comes to any kind of piece of software or whatever. And that's one of the reasons I learned the Adobe suite, because I just liked being good at computers. I guess that's the only way to put it.
Yeah.
And then as that happened, that's when I realized that businesses could really benefit from having back-end systems. Yeah. When you speak to business owners, I mean, I've spoken to business owners doing $300K a month that don't even have an automated CRM. It's like, how are you getting to them revenue points without these things in place? And when I kind of realized that, was the point which I realized that everybody needs AI and everybody needs automation in their business, and people need the right systems and processes in place. And it was when ChatGPT first came out and I used it for the first time, and there was things that I had done previously manually, things which I could now do using AI. And I was like, if I can do this then and benefit from it, then everybody can benefit from this.
Yeah.
And as that tech started to evolve, I mean, it's not even been out that long, ChatGPT specifically, but as the tech started to evolve, everything was coming out every single month. There was a new piece of AI tech, and I was like, whoa, this is cool. And then as you use more and more of it, you realize the opportunity there, but not just the opportunity, the magnitude of change which is going to happen. And that's the key thing. It's a perfect chasm between the current skill set that I have and the opportunity that is currently there.
Yeah.
You don't want to be in an industry which, for example, I would say what I was previously in, social media. Social media marketing's super saturated. There's a million marketing agencies, right? And there's a million marketing agencies that are general marketing agencies. They'll do paid ads. They'll do, obviously, some of them even do SEO. Some will do social media management. Some will do graphic design, video editing, and there'll be a general marketing agency. Then you've got some that are paid ads, marketing agencies for chiropractors, for example. And they're in that specific niche. And those are way easier to scale than a general marketing agency. Yeah. But the problem is that industry's become so saturated, and it's not impossible. And I think the agency model is probably one of the best business models to start in terms of, regardless of whether that's a marketing agency, an AI automation agency, it doesn't particularly matter what vehicle. But I think that the agency model is the great opportunity for anybody that wants to start the first business. Yeah. And the problem is specifically with the marketing side of things is the fact that it's become saturated because obviously everybody knows that every business needs to be on social media. And that was good, and the opportunity was there maybe back in 2016, 2017. That was probably where it was at its peak, and not everybody had the skill set. So businesses went through this period of time where they went from traditional marketing to digital marketing. And in that process, you had businesses that had been around 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, who had traditional marketing methods. And some new kid on the block came around and just got good at Facebook ads and crushed them. Yeah. And the problem there is the traditional business, who had been used to traditional marketing methods, had no idea what just happened because it happened so quickly.
Yeah.
And that happened to the marketing sector, right? The problem or the opportunity with AI and automation specifically is that we're now in a position where every single business is going to adopt this at some point or another. And they need to adopt it, otherwise they're going to get left behind. And the people that adopt it early will benefit from the opportunity. The businesses that don't adopt it will lose in the long run. And I fear the worst for them, to say the least.
Yeah.
The interesting thing, though, and the difference between this and, say, the marketing revolution with digital marketing is that, for example, a small business, right, with less than 10 staff can easily implement a chatbot on their website or on their social channels, which can handle an infinite number of leads that can then be nurtured into a book call or whatever sales outcome you want to get them to.
Yeah.
And there was a one recently, and I did a video on TikTok on this, and it was Klarna, the payments company. They put in a new chatbot, and that was to handle their customer service. And it does the job of 700 full-time employees. But the cool thing about that is myself, another small business, another medium business, they can have the same chatbot that they've got for the same price, which does the work of 700 people. You couldn't do that previously, so the playing field's leveled. And I would argue that it's actually skewed in SME's favour because they're able to adapt to new tech quickly. Yeah. The difference between this for AI and for what marketing was is marketing was top of hierarchy down. So business owners said, we need to be on Instagram and we need to be marketing our stuff because that guy who's 20 is crushing us right now because he gets it. Yeah. And that's what they said. And the employees are going, but we've always done flyers. And then they had to overcome that and then learn how to do it. This time it's the other way around. You've got the employees who are adopting tech. There's a friend of mine who you probably know as well. He's based out, I'm not saying where, but he's based out with a company, and his company have told their staff, you can't be using ChatGPT, even though it's making their jobs easier. But all the employees are telling the top of hierarchy, I want to use this, it makes my job easier. So it's the employees who are pushing this on the businesses rather than top of hierarchy down. And that's why it's interesting, because that's what's going to be the driving force to adoption ultimately.
Yeah. No, funny you mentioned that, because my place where I currently work, they told somebody to not use ChatGPT anymore as well in his work. I don't know what he used it for, because I don't really use it that often. I use it for like certain things, but not as much as what I probably should or could. Because that's why I really wanted to get you on, because I know we weren't going to go in depth about it, but just hearing what you've mentioned there, I'm very naive when it comes to AI. So in my head, I'm like still at the very first stages of everybody else. So to me, AI is very good at designing pictures of instruction, writing like messages or CVs or something like that, where after watching your videos, like I'll pretty much wait for them every day now on LinkedIn, because I know you've been doing one a day recently, and that's...
You should watch them on TikTok, because those ones on LinkedIn are like 3 months old. So it's all that... Yeah, because all that content on LinkedIn is like backlogged. Basically, LinkedIn just released LinkedIn Reels, or they're in the process of doing so. I was like, I'm going to have to post on LinkedIn now. Yeah. So I just scheduled everything from since I started TikTok, and it's like 3 months worth of content.
I mean, I do follow you on TikTok, so I'll start like actually watching your more recent stuff then.
Because there's loads of news things that I can't post on LinkedIn because it's out of date, but yeah.
No, because that's kind of when I started seeing them on LinkedIn, because I'm actually on LinkedIn due to work a lot more than I am on TikTok, because I try limiting my time on TikTok. Otherwise, I'm on it for God knows how long. So when I started seeing the LinkedIn stuff, I was like, I was clueless that you could do all of this. And that's just me, my naivety more than anything. And I do think there's a lot of other people who probably are in a similar boat. Maybe he's not as naive and not clued up as me, but...
We're very early.
Yeah.
We're extremely early. The opportunity is still there, and I think we're probably you've got what you call the technology adoption life cycle. And I did a video on this as well, but this kind of goes through the process of, you have the innovators, the early adopters, then you'll go through the chasm, and you'll have the early majority, late majority, and then the laggers, who are people who are now on Facebook, like your grandparents. Yeah. So every tech always goes through this, and it's the people who get in before the chasm that benefit the most. Yeah. Afterwards, it's too late. The opportunity's gone, because it's the early majority of now know what it is and have used it or whatever. Yeah. But it's those that'll take the risk on a new tech. And I've always been like that with anything. And Yeah, we're in the opportunity now. It's the only thing I can stress, but I don't know how long that window lasts because the tech's moving along so quickly. I don't know what's going to happen because I just think that it's outpacing people's ability to learn.
Yeah.
And I actually think that a lot of these AI companies, specifically OpenAI, are holding back the tech. I think that the latest GPT model that we have, GPT-4o, that's not the model that they've got internally. I don't believe it for a second. I believe they've got significantly more advanced models that they're not telling us about. Yeah. And I think that when they did a preview of OpenAI Sora, which is their video generation model, and it went super viral because the video generation stuff's getting better and better. It's almost indistinguishable. Yeah. And they never released it. It's not released yet, but other models have came out since from different companies. But my thought process and what I'd heard was that they released that on the basis to kind of give people a nudge to say, look, you just need to get your act together because this thing is serious and it's evolving at such a rapid pace. But you have this issue, and it's the question of, well, if AI can do X, Y, and Z, should we be using it? Should we allow this technology to exist, especially when it comes to AGI, which is artificial general intelligence? And there's this big debate of, should it be banned and whatnot? And the problem that you have is if it's not you, somebody else is going to do it. And that's what happened with the video generation stuff. They didn't release it, and then other companies released it. Right. So somebody's going to do it in terms of specifically AGI.
Yeah. Well, it's like a popular term that I heard in school quite a lot is, if not you, then who, isn't it, really? So it's very similar to that kind of saying. And just with you on about things always developing, I recently seen on X, I don't know if you've seen it as well. I don't know how often you spend on X or formerly Twitter, but they've releasing a new video streaming platform that's linked with X as well now. So I've seen that. I've been looking at that just to see if I can, because I think they've just released the beta now, so it's not obviously fully up and running, but I want to try getting on that as early as possible if I can as well, because I know it's Elon Musk tweeted about it and said he's going to try concentrating on for creators more than anything. So I want to try jumping on that as early as possible when that comes out. So I've been keeping an eye on that as well, because obviously everybody's on YouTube and everything like that now. So even if it doesn't get any views, being one of the early creators on there probably work and my benefits still, as long as I stay consistent with it. So that's going to be the plan. I just need to keep an eye on it. But jumping back to AI, when you mentioned about one thing doing for the Klarna, the AI doing was a job of 700 people, did you say?
700 people.
Yeah. So with that being said, I know this is an age-old question that's getting more and more popular. Will AI take over the world? Will people start losing jobs because of it, do you think? What's your opinion on it?
100%. People will lose jobs over AI.
Yeah.
That's inevitable. I think that it'll happen sooner than people realise. And the more the tech evolves, the more I sometimes worry about what things will look like in 10, 15 years. Yeah. And I think we're kind of seeing that a little bit now. I think people are kind of going the other direction with things a little bit. I think people are becoming more, they want more in-person experiences. This is why run clubs and stuff are popular. People want community, and people want experiences that are real and they're authentic, which is why I think content is going down that route as well. Yeah. When I first started posting content, I had more edited content, highly dopamine type content, which was lots of animations, lots of effects and sounds and all this. It doesn't perform as well as the videos I produce now, and maybe it's just the niche I'm in, but for a lot of other people, I think they see the same thing. You just want the raw, authentic thing, and I think that as AI becomes more and more adopted, I think that it's not so much the jobs that I fear for, it's more so human relationships in terms of friendships and people's want to talk to each other. Because you've got to think, right, if we achieve AGI, then you can have a friend that is exactly how you want them to be. They're like all the same things as you. They agree with the same things. They're completely designed around you. And I mean, we've seen this already with things like, and I don't want to get down in this tangent, but things like AI girlfriends. I mean, that's already a thing that's popping up, and it's crazy. And especially with sort of, not to go down that topic, but that type of thing now, and people not be, divorce rates are going up, and more men aren't dating, and these things does concern me for that side of things as well, I think. Yeah, especially as soon as we put them into action, if we get, I don't know if you've seen some of the like Boston Dynamics robots and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's a sort of separate thing. But if you put, for people who are watching who don't know what AGI is, some people are probably sitting there like, what's he on about? What's AGI? AGI, artificial general intelligence, is essentially consciousness. So if we achieve AGI, then artificial intelligence technically has its own consciousness, which means that it can think for itself and therefore can edit its own code to improve upon a thing. And that's where it's worrying, because AI is good at getting tasks and stuff done. And I mean, this is like more extreme, but if you give it a task to do, like, I don't know, for example, you put it into a robot and you say, get rid of all the litter in the world. Well, it could potentially take that in the wrong way and go, well, the root cause of litter is humans. So get rid of them and that'll solve the problem. So this is the dilemma.
Movie,
well, people, if somebody's just hearing about AI for the first time, it seems super far-fetched. It's probably because I'm super deep in the space and that, but it's not as far-fetched. I just don't know how far we're off that. But in terms of more on the software side of AI and stuff, I mean, that's going to replace jobs 100%. And there's a great story about computers in general, and it's the story about chess, right? There was a point in time when chess and the chess master, the best one in the world, was a human. There's a different human every year. They were the best chess master, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's called a grandmaster chess player. They were the best, and were the best continuously. Somebody else this year, somebody else that year, and it could be a different person every year. And then eventually what happened is we invented the computer, and when the computer got invented and started to play chess, eventually the computer was the best chess player in the world, and is still the best chess player today, and nobody can beat the computer, and will never beat the computer. It's not possible to do. And as soon as we hit that point, people didn't stop playing chess. People still play chess. But they're just not the best in the world, because the computer is the best in the world. So eventually, and some people who are watching this who know nothing about AI will be like, well, that sounds scary, or that doesn't sound like that could be possible. I'm here to tell you it is, and that's probably the way things are heading. But the best doctor in the world will be AI. The best lawyer in the world will be AI. The best teacher in the world will be AI, because it's all information. And that's the thing that concerns me. I've tried to think about this quite a bit in terms of what are we going to do? Like, what am I doing in 20 years that's meaningful to the world, where I can provide value? Because that's what you've got. Whenever you start any business model, right, you have to think, how can I provide value, and what type of market am I in? Is it a growing market, or is it a market which is diminishing? And you don't want to be in a market that's in decline. You want to be in a market that's flourishing, or is on the cusp of becoming a larger and larger market.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that concerns me, because then I think it's very hard to make decisions on, obviously we're in AI, so we're part of the problem. But but as time goes on, it's like, I just don't know what we'll be doing. I honestly think we'll have a universal basic income. And this is the problem, though. Like, I used to think, well, we'll just do more creative things. But the best artist will be AI. So I don't know what we'll do. But I think there'll definitely be people that need supported in terms of a universal basic income. I think that's a given. And that'll happen sooner than you think.
Said on an episode as well, isn't it? I don't know if you watch him much, but on one of his episodes, I can't remember who he was talking to about it. But they were saying that eventually, they think it would be at a place where the like the United States government will just have to give everybody like an income just to kind of live. And
Yeah, they give them stimulus checks. That's what will happen.
Yeah, that's what they were saying on that. I'll try finding out who that person was, who it was, because it was like good conversation on it. But like what you've just mentioned there, like a universal base income, like eventually, I don't know how obviously soon it would be, but I think for a lot of people it'll probably come quicker than what a lot of people would think.
100%.
Because I work in software engineering at the moment, so I do software onboarding, and when I think about it, I could probably utilize AI.
Oh, you definitely need to be doing that, mate. 100%.
Mate, I might have to ask.
So we'll talk after this because there's loads of things that could make your life easier.
Because I do onboarding for like basically, do you know your Everlast gyms and stuff like that? We collect their direct debits and have their software management systems. So like for gyms across the UK. So I onboard them onto the system when they're a brand new client. So I could probably have a lot of automated processes on my computer. Which is going to be a bunch of time.
Mate, 100%.
Yeah. But I agree with you with the other bits.
It's concerning, man. Like, there's jobs that I've already seen start to go. And sometimes with our clients, we have to have that conversation. We've had it with a few now where we've helped them out. We've helped them to automate their systems. We've implemented parts of AI. And we've had to have the conversation, and they'll come to us and they're like, look, you've helped us basically remove the need for this specific member of staff. I don't really know what to do with them. Yeah. We're like, well, that's a difficult conversation to have. But you can put people onto other things, but I'm talking long term. I don't know what people are going to do. But I mean, even like accountants and receptionists is one of them, and call centers specifically. Call centers are, if they don't bring legislation in soon, call centers haven't got very long left because, I mean, I don't know if you had any. I've actually had one happen to us where, and I was buzzing because like, oh my god, someone else is using this type of tech. It's like AI phone calls with AI voices, and they'll do cold calling. It's just got banned in the US, the cold calling stuff, but I don't think it's banned in the UK yet. But even for inbound though, so if you got a receptionist, for example, then you could replace them with an AI voice agent instead.
That's crazy.
For significantly less money.
Yeah. I was going to say one of our selling points to well, not me personally, I just onboard them, but the company's selling points is we do contact centre. So when people have issues with like their direct debits and stuff like that, they'll ring into our call centre, and they've just went night shift for 24/7 as well. So I'm assuming eventually, obviously it might be a bit further down the line with it being all like incoming rather than outgoing, but eventually they'll probably be able to work that more off AI rather than spending the revenue on.
Inbound will be the first to go. Inbound 100% will be the first to go in terms of AI voice agents. So when they're ringing the call centers to say, my Sky's gone off, or or whatever company it is, that'll be the first side of it. I think outbound will get banned, to be honest with you, but there's no reason to ban the inbound stuff, and companies are going to go, hang on a minute, I'm paying this person, I don't know, maybe $2,000 or something a month. I could just get this AI voice agent for a fraction of that cost that works 24 hours a day, that's trained on a knowledge base of everything about my company, that does not relay any information incorrectly, does never gets angry because it's having a bad day, never, it's trained perfectly.
I was going to say, I was a deputy.
How do you compete with that? How do you compete with that? No sick days, no holidays. Like, you can't compete.
Would be my dream like last year, because I was a team leader on the call centre. So you've got agent errors, mistakes on the accounts, people ringing in sick when you're already on like minimum staff because of annual leave and stuff like that. People having bad days on the call, like they're in a mood or whatever it is. You've just mentioned 3 things there that takes that away straight away.
Yeah, and I think that's within the next. It's pretty good now.
Yeah.
But I think within the next, I don't know. I don't want to give a prediction. say 18 months, maybe. 18 months, I think, to be safe. Could be a lot sooner. But you'll starting to see more pop up. I mean, I've actually had an inbound call that, like, somebody rang me, so it was outbound. That was AI, and it was interesting. It's actually good because I was buzzing. I was like, oh my God, there's definitely AI. But it's only because I'm in this space. This is what we're on about with my co-founders all the time. It's we always have this conversation. It's like, we're too close to the sun, so we're not good samples. I mean, there was a guy who I spoke to the other day, and he did a Zoom call with his parents, but it wasn't him on the Zoom call, it was his AI, and his parents had no idea. No idea. AI clone of him on a Zoom call. So, I mean, even video sales, I mean, even that's... Because the thing that we always say is, could you imagine a AI agent that does sales that's trained on that person's specific buyer type and their psychology, knows every single thing about them, knows exactly how to handle every single objection. It's like...
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy times.
There's even, I'm going a bit off topic, I'm staying on the AI though. There's even OnlyFans models becoming AI now as well, which is, it's a very
it's a growing industry, that.
Yeah, and then,
AI OnlyFans will take over the current creators. Unless they're super big. And they've
already got that following.
But even those ones, even the top, I don't know, top
they'll probably
people,
start using it though, that's the thing.
They have. There's a girl who did it with she cloned her voice, and people were paying, oh God, I can't remember the rate, £1 per minute or something like that, so to do texting back and forth.
Yeah.
And basically, you could text, and then she would do like I think it was on Telegram, would do a voice like note, and it's a clone of her voice, but it's trained on her. It's a knowledge base of her, essentially.
Right.
And yeah, but she was a big creator, so she like cloned herself, and she's making like 70 grand a week just doing that. Crazy, probably bigger now, but that's just somebody cloning their voice. But when it comes to full blown OF accounts of like girls, that I've already seen that in terms of there's people I've heard who are starting that.
Yeah.
Because how do you can't compete with that either. And this is what I was saying about the relationship stuff. It's like the problem there is you can if whatever your desire is, right, in terms of how they look, how they speak, any of the fantasies, anything like that, you can have it. Do you know what I mean? It can be made and built in a way that completely bespoke and tailored to that person and adapted based on how they respond and stuff. And it's like, how does a normal person who has their own flaws and things and they don't reply and all these things, how do you compete with that? It's like, it's just worrying. I can't help but think that's worrying. That's the side of stuff that I just don't look at. It's like, let me just build automation systems and implement AI to make people's lives easier and make them more money, help them to save time and help them to reduce their costs. And that'll do me, and be happy doing that.
Yeah, I was going to say I'll get moving on as well, because if I'm being honest, with me kind of not knowing much about it, I could be on here all night talking about AI, if I'm being honest, because I don't know nothing. So I like kind of being like a sponge and stuff that I haven't got a clue about, but I'll move on so we're not stuck here with AI all night. Yeah. But mate, really appreciate telling us about your stories as well, like the sobriety and stuff like that. I think it's very interesting. I know like what we were talking about is kind of been nothing mental health related or anything like that, but it will still help other people. And when you mentioned there, like having a reason for doing it will help you complete it, and then the experiences with Fusion, Business Lounge, and then obviously your current business as well. I think there will be a lot of the audience who can benefit from it all as well. So firstly, I want to just say thank you for obviously sharing all that with us. And then now it's just the questions. So this is just stuff that we do with every guest. There's one that I have chucked in, which I forgot to put on the discussion point. Yeah. So, it's fine. But that'll be the last one. And to be fair, it's the easiest one out of the lot. So first one, I've changed it slightly because originally it was your biggest mental like struggle. But for me, with you, because with you being quite a strong-willed person and stuff like that, I'm going to change it just the hardest thing that you have faced and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, I mean, I would probably
It probably
answer
goes
those
hand in
questions
hand.
the same.
Yeah.
I think in terms of the hardest thing I've had to overcome, right? And there's this great quote that I've seen recently, and I wrote it down because I took some notes for this because I wanted to make sure that I've not spoke on a podcast or anything like that, or even to many people recently in terms of about the last maybe 2 and a bit years of like my journey and stuff. So I wanted to make sure that I included some stuff. But there was a quote from Luke Belmore, and he says, "Those who want to lead the orchestra must be willing to turn their back on the crowd." And I seen that and I was like, that's brilliant. And it's completely true. And I think that's the hardest thing that I had to overcome is firstly being comfortable and accepting that the things that you want and desire, in order to achieve them, you have to let go of that person that you currently are. And that's the hardest part. And there's always going to be parts of you that go, like we mentioned earlier, love to be, doing the nightlife stuff still and stuff like that. Or I would love to go back to that time and those things. And there's always going to be little things like that. And that's you getting comfortable and reminiscing and whatever. But I think what he means in that quote is that you have to be accepting of the fact that in order to be exceptional at whatever it is that you're doing, you have to be an exception. So you can't be like everybody else. Yeah. And I think, especially in the sober stuff, I mean, when you first start doing it, you're automatically an outlier and you're completely different to everybody else. And that's a key thing of it. It's not normal for especially British culture. Yeah. So it's difficult. And I think that the hardest thing to answer your question about that was the hardest thing I had to overcome. It's just accepting that in order to get the things that I wanted to have, I had to become a different person and I had to detach my identity from that previously and I had to become almost like a new person. And I don't think you're ever going to be finished with that. You're going to go through different phases in your life and stuff. And you have to destroy that old version of you. And I think the hardest part about the whole thing up to now, and like I say, I mean, I've got so much more that I want to do and want to achieve and stuff. And I think the hardest part about the whole thing has been you have to, and I probably can attribute the podcast to parts of this and this resilience, is you have to do the same thing over and over and over again and not see any results and be okay with the fact that that's what's happening. Yeah. And that's the hardest part, because when you're not seeing the results, you don't know if you're heading in the right direction, and you have to be a bit deluded to think that you can do whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. And that's it, ultimately. That's what it comes down to. Yeah. It's getting up every single day, mate, every single day, and just doing the same thing over and over again. Nobody's coming to clap for you. Nobody's going to say, you're doing well, whatever. Nobody gives a fuck, right? It's literally you and whatever goal it is that you have, and you've just got to be focused on that specific thing. Yeah. And there's times, man, where like, even myself, I thought, God, am I doing the right thing? Could just give up. And like, even, I mean, the brief moments, but even in those moments, it's like, that's the hardest thing. It's not knowing that there's an end to whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. Yeah. And that's the hardest thing. It's not knowing where the light is at the end of the tunnel. And especially when you don't know anybody that's been through that before. Yeah. If it's a new thing and you've never spoke to somebody or seen somebody that's done that thing, I think that's really difficult. Combined with your limiting beliefs. And this is one of the things that I never used to think was important, but we all have limiting beliefs. And I remember when I did my first ever logo, I charged £20 for it. Right? First ever logo. And, we've just done recent client projects for 15, 20 grand and thousands of pounds in retainers every month. And in doing that, like, I had to get over my limiting belief of what I was able to charge for the thing that I offered. That was one of them. Or just the limiting belief on what you think is possible. And what I would say to that, without going too much into it, is you have to get yourself around people who have done a thing that you want to do, or as close to it as possible. You might not know anybody in your own city, or you might not know anybody in your own friendship group, but there's people on YouTube that have done the thing that you want to do. And I always think that finding a mentor, whether that's somebody that you know that you can speak to, or it's somebody who you consume their content, and that's how you get there. But I think finding people who've done the thing opens your eyes to what's possible, and you need to do that for the self-belief of things.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of goes back to one of the valuable skills that I learned when I was doing Nightlife, is networking. And because I networked, I got to meet more people and learn more things, and I use that now. You know, there's bigger creators than me on socials and stuff that by speaking to them, I've been able to find out things and obtain knowledge, which is combined with skill, which is the key. And I think the knowledge thing's the one of the most important things. And I know you've got another question, so I'll let you ask it, because it kind of ties into that as well.
Right, cool. So that's obviously that one. I'm just having a look at them now. The other next one would be the 3 people you would invite to a dinner party. Obviously, audience know I do it every episode, so they know it can be past, present, celebrity, someone close, whoever. So who would just be your 3? If you want to know mine, I'll tell you off air, just because I think I've said the same 3 people in every single episode so far, and they haven't changed, so I'm not going to bore everybody else with the same 3.
I mean, if you asked me this 3 months ago, it would be different. 6 months ago, it would be different. And I think...
Yeah, it'll always change.
Yeah, it changed. I mean, yeah. It's funny, because when I had my job, like when I worked in corporate, I got asked this question as part of like their magazine, and I tried to find it and I couldn't find it. And it was interesting because I remember some of the people that put on it, and I thought never would pick them now. It's like so badly skewed. But the reason I knew you were going to ask that, obviously after that question, and it kind of leads on from the point I was making, but knowledge is the best thing. Knowledge and skills are the best things that you can obtain, right?
Yeah.
Knowledge is the thing that gets you to where you need to be more quickly in, I would say, business specifically. Maybe even in other areas of your life as well, fitness and stuff like that. It helps you get there quicker. So if you can get yourself around people that have knowledge, then it helps. So the 3 people that I would invite to dinner, and I had to think about this, because I want it to be like a nice mix of people who would like get on and stuff like that as well. So I was thinking about that. But ultimately, these are people who are a million miles further along the journey than me. And if they could cut my journey shorter by a period of time, that would be invaluable. And I think it would be a good laugh. So the people I've got down is Alex Hormozy, Iman Gadzi, and Luke Belmore. Those are the 3 people I would like to meet. And I think meeting them for a dinner would be great, because I think that, like I said, they're a million miles ahead of the journey. And, you know, whether it's something to say in conversation or whatever, I think that they would provide a lot of insights which would help me to get to where I want to be. And I think that, I mean, if I could go back to myself 5 years ago and speak to myself, I would speak to myself and give myself advice. So I just think that if I could ask people who are further along, I think that would be, it would be super beneficial. Yeah. So that's how I would use that invitation.
Yeah, I like the thought process behind it as well. Yeah. And it's funny that you said you would speak to yourself 5 years ago, because the curveball actually is, what final bit of advice would you give to your younger self?
God, what, 5 years ago?
Just your younger self, so it doesn't have to be 5 years ago. It's
a good question.
Should have probably told you this one and left one of the other ones out.
There's so many things I would say to myself 5 years ago. Yeah. Like, so many. But I'm torn between 2 different things. I would either tell myself just to keep going, I'm on the right path. Yeah. Or hurry the hell up. I have not got time to wait.
Yeah.
Probably one of the two. But I think that if you want some tangible advice, it would be just get myself surrounded by people that are better than me at wherever I want to get to. I think that one of the key things, and I think one of the most important things to do, is to make sure that you're always surrounding yourself by people who are better than you, and your goal should be to be the worst person in the room. So whether that's like with fitness or it's with obviously business or whatever, you should be the one with the smallest business in the room. Like if you're the one with the biggest, you're in the wrong room.
It's so funny you say that, because I've seen a quote on TikTok today when it says, if you're the best in the room, you're in the wrong room.
100%. It's completely true.
Yeah.
It's the same for when you come to hiring people. You should always hire people that are better than you. It's pointless hiring people that are worse than yourself. It's hire better people than you to do the thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's... I would probably just tell myself it's going to be okay.
Yeah. Good that you said that about the hiring as well, because Ryan, who I've mentioned earlier on in the podcast, he with Pride Coaching, he says he's kind of not fallen out of love with it, but he doesn't really have the interest in the fitness aspect of things anymore. So he's got two sides of the business. One where he does the online coaching, but then the second one is mentoring, like personal trainers who are going online themselves. So he says he much prefers the business aspect of that and coaching them rather than doing the fitness coaching for, like, say, me or you buys a program or joins the program. So he's now got people who obviously do all the client check-ins who are a lot more like passionate about that as well. So it's good that
it's all about leverage. It's just part of the evolution of business, I think. I think when you first start out, you're wearing all the hats. You wear every single hat. You're the one that's doing the fulfillment. You're the one that's sourcing the leads. You're the one that's billing people. You're the one that's dealing with complaints. You're the one that's dealing with getting testimonials and these things. And then, slowly over time, you get the right people in place to do these things. And then you focus on the highest leverage and the biggest needle movers in the business. And you've got to start with, I think, why you're starting the business is so important. Don't just start like a business because you think, well, I'm passionate about this thing. Because whatever you do, even if you're passionate about it in the beginning, you will not be passionate about it by the end of it, in my opinion anyways. So you have to do something which is going to give you the type of life you want, right? So for me personally, the thing that I never wanted was to be geographically tied. I could have started a business where I had a premises and I was in hospitality. I could have went into, bar, restaurant or something like that. Or I could have went into selling something from a physical store, anything like that. But I didn't want to be geographically tied, and I wanted to be infinitely scalable. I wanted to be able to scale as big as I could, and that was part of the reasons as to why. I just wanted to be able to travel where I wanted to travel, work from where I wanted to work, only ever need myself and a laptop, and I very much was conscious of that when I started the first business, and obviously what we're doing now. And that's something that I wish I had considered. I think I got lucky in that sense.
Yeah.
I think maybe with the first one, I just kind of thought, I'm interested in this thing. But fortunately, I think my interest lied with the fact in a business model where I could be not geographically tied. But that was always something I was conscious of. It's not the easiest thing to do, but it's going to give you what you want out of your life, because ultimately you're building a business not just to make money, but to give yourself certain things. And you can chase material things and things like that, but for me it's always been about freedom. And I think not having that tie to somewhere has been really important for me personally.
No, that would be one of my key factors as well, because I love like travelling and stuff like that as well. So I could never start a business that's based on locality, because it's my biggest pet peeve now, like working for somebody else. You're tied down to being in I'm remote working, but I can only stay in the UK. Like if I went on holiday, I couldn't log on and do work. Like they've said no to that. and we're a global
Yeah.
company as well, because like we've got offices in France, Australia, New Zealand, America, and I was like, let us go to Australia.
When you, obviously, I mean, with your company being a global company, when you start talking to people, I mean, we've got clients in the UK, we've got clients in the US, in parts of Europe as well. And when you start getting into those global markets, mate, you realise how small the UK is.
Yeah.
And other markets, specifically the US, are so much more free with their money. They're willing to take a chance on things and stuff. And it's just interesting to operate from, you haven't got that geographical tie. So you don't have those things where you've got to go to a specific location every day. You know, you're completely reliant on that. Like if they change the tax laws, the government changed the tax laws, and it affects you know, all these external factors. If that happens now, I can just pick up my laptop and go elsewhere.
Yeah, Dubai, 0% tax for business.
We'll see.
Nah, mate, that's been fantastic. I felt a lot more shaky on this one because I haven't done a pod in like 2 weeks, I don't think. So I kind of got out of the groove of it, but
it's all repetition. It's all repetition. It's the same with creating content.
It's been one of my favourite ones, but I think that's because I was very like engaged with the AI stuff and things like that. But yeah, it's been one of my favourite episodes, mate, so thank you very much for coming on. To wrap it up though, where can everybody find you on social media? I'll be dropping the links in the description as well.
Okay, so either the links in the description or my TikTok's probably the best place to get me at the moment. My handle is just Nathan Hodgson _. If you type in Nathan AI automation, it'll probably come up, to be fair. Or, well, it depends when this episode goes out, but I'll be on YouTube more soon and Instagram as well. Cool. All the same handles.
Brilliant. And if you're watching on YouTube, everything will be in the description down below anyways. And that's a wrap, guys. Thank you for tuning in. If you're on YouTube, please make sure to like, comment and subscribe. If you're on a streaming platform, give us a follow and a 5-star review. No clue what it does, but I'm sure it'll help in some way.